looks like we're live, so welcome everyone to another chess stream. So today I will be reviewing a book that I thought I had done 1 year ago, as evidenced by the title, but I'm pretty sure that I actually did this book at least 2 years ago. It's been a while since I actually reviewed it, so let's take a look and see what that's all about. Just looking for it. Alright, first it's gonna be ugly, and then it's gonna be nice. Excuse me. Okay. Let's pause and make sure this is showing up. Okay. Yeah, it looks alright. So I guess we can always pause and we can take a look at the prompt. So anyone who's not familiar with Chessable, this is a website where you can get a lot of free or paid books. This one was a paid book that has a short free version. And so you can go on this website to do self-study for chess, which I think is really important, especially for adult type people or people who are in high school who just don't have time to do all that stuff that, you know, younger players who are hoping maybe to one day play in the World Cadet can do. Those people usually have a lot more time. I know recently there was a big deal about what were all the books that Abhimanyu Mishra studied, and since I had like an upfront view of his progress to become the world's youngest GM, I know he invested probably more time than anyone that I've met to attain his goal. So it's mostly about the time that you put in, and if your lifestyle is such that you don't have very much time, it's good to be able to do something that's very economical. And I consider Chessable pretty economical. The only risk with Chessable is that some of the books are lower quality, but the one that we're looking at today is a book that I approve of. It's the Magnus Touch Endgame book. There's also a strategy book. So I did this a while ago. I don't consciously remember anything, like maybe my hand remembers something, but I can't tell you what was in this book. I remember the idea that it was good. I remember my opinion of it, so we're gonna just see if I can actually remember the positions. So for this one, it starts with a little description of the position. You can see in this box on the right. That's how I always do my Chessable streams. So you can see the text on one side and the position on the other. And it's timed. Hello, Utermaster. And you have to just find the solution. And these should be pretty hard. At least I think so. So let's see what we have here. This pawn looks like it might want to be a queen one day, but we have these rooks in the way. Same thing with this pawn. Black can't really easily make progress. The sort of natural thing to do might be to play knight f4 and try to use this g6 square, but even that runs into problems. Like, first of all, g3 is hanging. Second of all, if you play knight g6, they can play rook takes g6. Interesting thing though, if you got knight g6 in one move, they can't really take it, because after the sequence, there's no way to bring the rook back to stop the pawn from becoming a queen. So I guess the next thing might be can they take on g3 for real? So we play knight f4, they play rook takes g3, it's check. That's pretty ugly. So it's tempting to play rook h3, but as the text suggests, the problem is that the rook on h1 and the knight on e2 are passive. Yes, it's white to play. I think in Chessable the side to play is always at the bottom. It also says it in the box that it's white to play. Also, the color of the dot in the bottom right hand corner is an indicator. I don't think you guys can see that though. Let me see. Let me try to resize things. I'm probably going to lose this on time, but that's okay. I'll try to make it so you can see how much time I don't have. Alright, cool. There. I hope that worked. I feel like maybe I could play like a5 and rook a1 with the idea that if they play rook takes h5, I can play bishop takes e4. No, wait. Not quite. How about rook b1, rook takes h5, bishop takes e4. Just say, like, forget about it. I don't care about that pawn. I care more about the a pawn. Well, I want to go through as much of the book as possible, so I might just try to do this quickly. I think it's rook b1. And this is my idea. Okay, that's accurate. So this way, I dismantle the strongest aspect of their position, their central pawns. My rook is free to do good things, and I still have this winning pass pawn. Maybe I could beat a computer in this position. The two minor pieces against the rook is pretty nice. Okay, so they have some textual explanation, but since we got it right, we can move on. Alright, so simple question. Does white win with rook takes f7? And what is the next move? That's a good question. So, well, I'm getting some Discord messages. Everybody good here? Yeah. The Discord channel, the Discord server for this YouTube channel has an active meme thread, so that's what it was. So anyway, where were we? So are we going to take on f7? Fantastic question. Also, this book is ostensibly written by Magnus Carlsen. I feel like there are probably only 2 books that are written by Carlsen at this point in his career. So that's kind of interesting. I feel like it's rook takes f7, king takes f7. Excuse me, sorry. Knight b6. King e7 and king b2, rook h8, and bishop b5. Excuse me. Because one of the nice things that the knight and the bishop can do is make this wall. So I'd like to have the knight covering these two. Oh wait, no, the bishop's redundant in that case. Okay, I was tripping for a second there. I still think rook f7 is best, because I just know that I can somehow post up a minor piece to like block the a file from behind, and my king's really close, so I should be able to support the pawn. So the only issue is that my bishop is pinned. So it's like at the moment that they move to attack the pawn, I need to be able to play a good defensive move. Maybe knight a3 is fine. I go knight a3, and more long term, like not just blocking the a file, I can go here. And then I could put my bishop here. Excuse me. That seems pretty reasonable. And I feel confident that I could checkmate with knight and bishop. So well, if I can get this all the way to a7, play knight b5, that's like clearly good. So is there tactically an issue with just playing a6? I do want to keep their king from getting over here quickly. So I go a6, okay, a7. No, this seems good. What could go wrong? If they start checking from the side, I'll just play like, I don't know, let's keep improving my king. I feel good about this. Now if I play a7, my threat I guess is bishop e4. So I should be winning. Yeah, I just want to make sure it was winning. That's right, Yeater Master. So, a6 is just winning, and you just have to see that you're supporting the pawn with knight b5 or something. I don't think it's that complicated, so we can move on. So here, Magnus won a pawn. This is Kremnick versus Carlson. Can you guys see the names of the players? Let me check. Yeah. I think I've checked out the games themselves too, and they're interesting in their own right. Like, how do we get here? This is a really great question. So White's trying to do this, which is easy. We need to stop it somehow. Maybe I have to bring the knight back one of these ways. I don't really want to go here because they could just take with the bishop. But maybe it doesn't matter. Like knight e4, bishop takes, pawn takes, a5. It's taking them 3 moves to queen. I'm not going to get there in time with the rook. Or maybe a5, rook b7, a6, rook b8, a7, rook a8. Probably the weakness of the e-pawn gives them counterplay. Like they can play rook a4, f5, rook a6, king f7. I could bring my king all the way to d7, but then I couldn't move it again. Or maybe I could play e5 to deal with that. Maybe I should just play rook b7 like right now. Like just go get the pawn. I kind of like the idea of getting rid of their bishop first, because this is promoting on a8, right? And I want to get that bishop out of here. So it's like, do I play knight e4 and then rook b2? Or rook c2? I don't know if it matters. Or rook d2, because after knight e4 they can take and I can play rook d2. Well, they also have weaknesses on this side in the endgame. Like any rook endgame we play here, I think black's better with this pawn structure. But we're not going to get a rook endgame unless it's knight e4. Knight e4, a5, d6. Well, it would be too passive to bring my knight to a7. Maybe that's kind of the issue. We should just play rook b2 to begin with. Ooh, it's just alternative. That probably means it's rook c2. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so in the sideline it says taking the pawn on e3 is a mistake. Like, I didn't even consider it. And here, after rook b8, we're pretty much lost. I'm sorry, rook b1 and then rook b8. So this is an interesting variation. So the king's trying to go in here, one of these 2 ways. That's the important square. So why don't we just go protect it, like go here, go here. Oh yeah, e5 is also like a more active place to do the same thing. Makes sense. Yeah, rook takes e3, I don't think it's even worth calculating. It's just a waste of time. You can go get that pawn later. It's weak. Bring your king to e4 or something. Or maybe just go win the a-pawn. Like, if they push too much and keep it on dark square, that should be possible. So white wants to play this. Maybe just don't let them do it. Yeah. You know, this is easier than I remembered it being. Yeah, that means my memory's really bad, or that I'm better at chess than I was, like 2 years ago. I'm comfortable with either possibility, but I hope it's, you know, that I got better. So now they want to do both of these things, and that's going to happen if I move my king or my knight. Maybe play knight f7. So knight f7, king g6, knight g5, king h6, knight h7, king h7. Yeah, this is just bad. They're passing the h pawn. It'll take at least 3 moves to get this pawn rolling. So maybe king e7 with the idea to play king f7, trapping the bishop. So what if it's king e7, bishop g8? That's kind of a critical question to me. Oh, g6, and then king f4. And then they're never going to get their thing. Bishop g8, g6. I think this is it. Yeah. So if we play bishop g8, g6 is check, they move back, and then we also can go back. That is perfectly fine, because they can't get the same setup anymore once g6 is played. They can't invade on g6. The knight's got it covered, so if the bishop goes back to h7, that doesn't matter. We can just play king d4, I think. Maybe not king d4. Actually, what's our long-term plan here? Oh, how about knight d3 check? King wherever Bill, king f3, and then king e5. With the idea to drive the king out further, because now we've taken f4 under control. So we might hit him with another check, hit him with a right hook, hit him with a jab, and play king e4. At that point, should be winning, I think. Wait, knight d3 check, king f3. But with the bishop on h7, if I play king e5, bishop takes g6. So actually that doesn't work. Interesting. Actually, I think the next puzzle might be from this game. Okay, so it looks like Carlson brought the king around the back. So instead of trying to come through e5 with knight d3 and everything, he just walked around because white was passive. That makes sense to me too. So now we get this tricky position. And the text just says, how do you win? So how do we win? This boy's hanging. The boys aren't all right. Maybe knight f1. I'm just looking at a forced line. King f3, king h2. Bishop takes d5, king takes h3. I mean, this feels good. Threatening knight h2, winning the g pawn. If they play bishop e6 in anticipation of that, I can just well, I don't see how the first move could be wrong. Oh man, alright, it's wrong. I thought all my active play involved playing knight h2. And knight f1 actually also attacks the e-pawn, so like, what gives here? There must be something good about the c4 square, because it's not just because it attacks the pawn, because knight f1 does that too. Excuse me. I wonder if it's the use of the e5 square. So I guess the natural question of what happens if they take the pawn will be answered. Well, then we just take on e3, and I think it's kind of obvious. I'm curious about what happens if they didn't. Actually, yeah, I guess it's necessary, because if they move their king, I'd play king h2. But then I don't see how knight f1's different, so let's analyze this. Yeater Master got it? Oh, cool. Okay, let's play knight f1 now. And then do this. Okay, so normally I hate going into their analysis board. That's one of my small criticisms of Chessable. I don't think their analysis board is very good. It's very, very janky. So let's go to it anyway, because that's what we have to work with here. Oh, and it does look janky. So we can get the in-browser engine analysis like this. And here it says that knight c4 and knight f1 are equally good moves, but it also says to repeat going back to knight c4. So let's see what happens if we just do what I said I would do. King h2. This is winning for black, so there's probably another defensive resource here. So this is attacking the knight. I wonder if it's really that important if they still have a e-pawn. We're taking the h-pawn. I guess this is the difference between being up a pawn and like being up an additional pawn and I still think black is winning here. Like, the score in this position is nearly the same as the initial position, I think, according to the engine. Yeah, it's very nearly the same. So I still consider mine an alternate solution, but the engine does favor knight c4 slightly. And I kind of get the rationale here that after this somewhat forced sequence, like maybe they'll go here. I would rather have all the pawns on one side of the board in an endgame with knight against bishop. And I'd rather play two pawns against one pawn. And I feel like that's what's going to happen here. Like, they can try to swindle, but it doesn't look like it's happening after, like, I don't know, this move. We should be able to survive. Because both are protected. And if they trade into a lost king and pawn endgame. Yeah, it's okay if this is Stockfish 11. I don't think in this position it matters that much, like what engine we're using. But yeah, it's funny that they didn't update, considering we have Stockfish 14 for free now. Are you guys seeing the right position? Yeah, okay, we can move on. Alright, still seeing the right position? Good stuff. Yeah. We're on 14 now, right? I know I have the most recent one, but I just call it Stonkfish, so I don't even remember what number it is. Okay, so we're switching it up. This is the point of view of Magnus's opponent, which I think is a nice thing about this book and the other book on the strategies. It doesn't always take his side. It's not just like a montage of Carlson beating people, per se. Okay, so I think the essence of this position is that they want to take the b pawn, and that's annoying which is basically what the text says. And I think the way to deal with that is by playing e6, because if they play f6, you'll see why that might be reasonable in a second. After f6, we have a pass pawn, right? We're playing queen d7. Well, maybe not queen d7 right away, but you know, we can pass that pawn. Maybe just play e7, because if they play king f7, queen d7 should be lights out. Unless they have some kind of wild checking sequence. But anyway, it's very promising, because we have multiple ways that we could maybe take an advantage after f6. And if they take on e6, which is probably more obvious in common sense, we can play queen takes a5 with the idea that if they play queen b2, it's not check, so we can go back and play queen c3 check and trade the queens. Wait, hold on. The b pawn's gone, so that doesn't make sense. Sorry. Tactical error. There is no b pawn. Still, e6 does seem promising, so they take. We could play queen c3 check there, but because they just took the b pawn, that's why it's not there. Like queen takes b2, I want to play queen c3 check. If my king was on d3, which is impossible, that would be cool, but nope. Alright, how about e6, fe6, queen d7, king f6, queen takes b7. That looks pretty good, because I'm still guarding b2, but I've fractured the queenside pawn structure, and my kingside pawn structure is still on fleek, so I think it's e6. Alright, cool. Yeah, in the text it says that white has a whole range of sufficient queen moves here. And it says queen d7 was played, but queen d6 or queen c3 should also draw the game. It says you don't need to calculate e6 to perpetual to play it, which makes sense. That's kind of how I arrived at e6. It was the only move I considered, because other moves are, like, obviously other moves come to mind, but they are like, black can improve their queen side, and we can't really improve our king side, because this is a nice little barrier. What about e6, queen g1? I probably am winning after e6, queen g1 check, because I can play king e4. I don't think you really have meaningful checks, but if I can guard b2 with my king, I can maybe start doing something active. Let's see what happened in the game. Oh, we're just at another game. Whoops. Alright, so this is from analysis. Black's king and rook are stuck on the back rank. I think we are winning with a tactic where, so after rook c1, they can't take on d7 because of rook c8, so they have to play king f8. Rook c8 is threatening to take the rook, so they had to play king e7. And we can take, and play. Actually, no. I don't like this, because I wanted to come try to take the pawns, but there's no way to easily take the pawns, but these two against one can become a pass pawn for black. So probably the pro move is rook d6, with the idea that if they do not a lot, like king f8, trying to take this d pawn, I can take on f6, and after rook takes d7, well actually hold on, maybe not take on f6, maybe rook e6, and if they take, king e7 should be fine. I kind of want to get my rook on g7 and take the h-pawn. there's another way to get there. Maybe instead of all this like shenanigans with the rook, I should just play g4 and g5 and f6, and like call it a day. Because all the problems involve king e7, and having a pawn on f6 would make that impossible, and then they have like no moves to play. So g4, king f8, g5. If they go king e7, is that fine? Because they still get it. It's just that if they don't play king e7, I take on f6. Or if they take on g5, I play f6. So those both are good, but what if they just play king e7? Maybe I'll play pawn g6. If they play h takes, I think h7 is winning, because I'm threatening h8, rook takes, and then d8, queen. No, the king's on e7, so that doesn't work. So I wouldn't play h7. I would take back. They take back. Then I play h7. And now they're in Zugzwang because they can't take on d7 and they can't go take on h7. It doesn't seem that clear, but it still feels right to play g4 and g5. g4, king f8, g5, king e7. Well, I wonder if I even have a reasonable alternative. King f3, king f8, king e4, king e7 is happening like really fast. And I don't think I'm better in the king and pawn endgame because of the queen side. So I think g4 is the best. Well, that was really cooperative. I feel like they didn't have to be that nice. Right now, do I play king f3? Rook c1, like my original idea, because they can't play king e7. Okay, good stuff. So I'm wondering if it has a note for king e7. Alright, so rook c1 is too slow. We knew that. Alright, so here it says g6, f takes, h takes, h7. My same variation. But I think what I didn't appreciate here, like I knew this was winning somehow, but rook c1 to c8 should win something. Because if they play king f7, I was worried that maybe they could go take this, and I would have to play rook h1 to guard, but rook c1 comes with tempo, because after king g7, rook c8, they can't take on d7, because h8 is a queen with check. So yeah, that would be really bad for them, so puzzle well solved. Alright, so white has an extra pawn. Good night. Probably you should sack an exchange here. Or not, that's a little drastic. Maybe h5. Try to gain access to some weaknesses. So if they do nothing, we take, and take on e6. But if they take on c3 and we take, we are threatening rook takes e6. Right, so we have this. And if they make an extra move to just like push their pawn, like if they go here, rook b3 with tempo on the rook on b6, we can take, threatening mate, so they have to take. We play f7 check. They play king to g7. And we play knight d7. Which guards b8, so they can't play rook b8 to stop the pawn. And even if they did, well, no, if they were able to stop the pawn, this would probably be losing for white because the c pawn's pretty fast. I can't get over there with my king. So, but anyway, here they can't do it. They can't play rook b8. We're just gonna make a queen. I just feel like they have a lot of options after h5. Like, what if they play g5? I wonder how forcing g5 and taking over g6 impacts black's solidity. Like, maybe there could be some checkmating idea. I kind of doubt it, though. Well, anyway, I can't protect c3. There's just no way. And rook b8's not working. And rook takes e6 isn't working, so I think this is it. Oh. It says it is rook b8. Definitely knight g6 wasn't working, though, so we can kind of skip over that. Alright, so what's the big idea here? I thought it was good to keep an idea to take on e6. Maybe rook e8 takes f7. No. Doesn't make sense. Maybe just rook f8, and if knight takes, if rook takes c3, then knight takes f7, with the idea of rook h8 checkmate, so they have to play bishop takes f7, rook takes f7 check, king g8, rook g7 check, king f8, rook takes g6 maybe. I think this is good. It's an alternative, okay. If that's the alternative, what's the main move? Maybe h5? No, it's f4. Interesting. It says, just as in the previous game, white intends to use the kingside pawns to force a breakthrough. So this is kind of similar. The other one I got easily, and this one I really messed up. So that's interesting. I guess the point is I want to get knight takes f7 for free. I don't want to trade on f7 for a checkmating idea. Okay, so this was not really like black's position is solid. I would not consider it solid if you can play rook b8. So maybe I was kind of biased in my calculation by reading the text. So we just give a check and then play f4. Alright, so the question is, how does white give back the e pawn? What's the best way? Probably just by giving it. Alternative, okay. Alternatives are like the bane of my existence on Chessable. feel like I can just, I don't know, make a move and like see what happens. Alright, that was barely a puzzle. Let's just keep going. It's just like, how do you want to trade pieces? And it's like, well, just let them do it. Yeah, it's good to let your opponent do all the heavy lifting. Black is reduced to passive defense. Woe is black. Well, I wonder if I can improve my pieces. The answer seems like no. Because Master, are you bragging because you got it right? Or something else? So I like that there's pressure on b6. My king can't advance further, and I want to access weaknesses like b6 or g6 or h6 or f7 or their king or any of these pieces really. So I don't feel like going that way with my king. I'm not doing that. I don't want to take on g6 because that's lame. I feel like I need to push out of the f pawn or the c pawn, or both. I'm inclined to push the f pawn. I'm wondering if they get counterplay after g takes h, though. Or maybe bishop f6. No, bishop f6 should be fine. f4, bishop f6, rook b6, bishop d4, rook e6, pawn e6 check, king d4. Not a problem. We're just winning. Yeah, so a lot of the books that come out these days are like a weird mix of super easy and super difficult. They're like, here's an engine line that you're supposed to find, and then it's like, here's a beginner puzzle to make you feel like you can do this. Which is okay, you know, it's just a bit of a, it might be a bit of a letdown when you get a book and you think it's like full of like all the hard puzzles, and it turns out there's a mix. Even in Dvoretsky's book, sometimes it's like that, but it's less noticeable because Dvoretsky's books are usually written for like a GM audience, so they just all seem hard. Yeah, a lot of books are like really soft, especially these days. Maybe it's a sign of the times. I kind of want to play f5 and have them take and like their rook has to retreat, so maybe let's play f4 and see what happens. Okay. So I guess they want to play rook d6. That could be why they're playing bishop c7. But I don't feel worried by a move like that. Maybe I can just play f5, rook d6 check, king e4, takes. I'm still basically winning, right? Are there any shenanigans with bishop b6, maybe? No, I don't think so. I was thinking bishop b6, and then f5. Takes, rook e1, and then rook takes b6. But they can play rook takes b6 on the first move. And it's not a tactic, that's a blunder. I'm still pretty rusty. I've been playing again for like a couple weeks and I'm still pretty rusty, I guess. Well, my idea was to play f5. I don't see why I shouldn't. If I play g5, let's play bishop f4. That doesn't seem right. Maybe it's okay, actually. Well, Master in the chat actually brings up an interesting point. He says, when you expect the book to be hard, you think the solution can't be that easy, then you don't play it and get it wrong. Well, you have to overcome that kind of self-doubt and kind of unproductive way of thinking. So maybe in that sense, these kinds of books are good for you. You have to practice like being confident in your answer. Like when I analyze something, I know that my analysis is pretty good. I get things wrong only because I'm human, not because my analysis method is bad. So I don't ever think like, well, it can't be this or it should be that. I think that's kind of unobjective. It's better not to think that way. Now it occurs to me that maybe I can play bishop e5. Just say like, let's trade. It's Monopoly. Let's trade some pieces. But maybe this trade is more beneficial for them than it is for me. Because after bishop e5, pawn e5, maybe it's okay. I think they could play king e7, and because I don't have a bishop pressuring b6, they might have an easy time. But I could always play c4, then c5, and then take on a5 and get a passed a pawn. So that could be good. I actually kind of like that. Dang it. My plan was better. But I'm curious if my move's good, because I think I have a sound reasoning behind it. Oh, I'm analyzing the wrong position as usual. Jeez. Another thing I really don't like about the Chessable analysis board, it only will let you play from the position in which you click the analysis button. So it's a little janky in that way. Bishop e5 is their fourth recommendation, and it's only like hundredths of a centipawn off from the evaluation of the top move, which is c4, not even the move that they played. f5 is, alright, so f5 is tied for first with c4. So it looks like all the moves I consider are winning. And the lines that it's giving don't look like they're repeating or anything. There's just winning moves. Okay, so I still feel like that was a win for me, because my line is fine. I'm confident I could win that. Alright, so this would have happened if black played g5 in response to f5. The clearest way for white to win. So they want to take any of these pawns with the rook, right? The rook's looking very active. In fact, rook a4 cannot be stopped. Because even if we did something like king a6 and king b5, they could always play rook a2. I think I would rather keep my a pawn if I could entice them into taking a different pawn. Like if I played bishop takes b6, that would come with tempo. They'd take, probably. I'd take with the rook. If they take on a4, I can just take on h6, and that should be winning. It's a good pawn structure. And if they play rook takes c3, it's even better, because it gives me time to play king a6 and take on a5 maybe. And I don't think I'm going to get checkmated on the edge of the board, because I could always check their king away. Give me. Oh, come on. This is bishop g7. So just going for the pawn more quickly somehow? Okay. You know, I'm starting to slowly remember that I had objections to some of their mainline choices. This one's pretty swanky though. I thought they would go for counterplay, not just passive defense. So let's go back and see. If... Huh? Oh, sorry. YouTube was prompting me with something stupid. Anyway. Oh yeah, let's analyze this position. is bishop takes b6 just a blunder? Like, yes, I'm definitely wrong this time. Because it says after bishop takes, I was gonna play rook takes. I wonder why it's saying this one. Rook takes a4, rook h6. I thought this was definitely winning, but it looks like it's not. Rook takes g4. I saw this too. Yeah, this looks like mutual chances. It's true. Okay, so maybe I was just a bit hasty on this one. I just wanted to get the rook endgame. I thought this was winning. Maybe I need to be a little bit more ambitious in that sense. Like, I should want more out of the position than that rook endgame. So this makes sense. I am totally cool with getting this one wrong. Alright, so this one's a black exchanged on f5, and white has a tactic. Probably this one. No. It's this. And then bishop g7, I'm pretty sure. Now do I play f6? I think it's f6. What is this? f6, I can just go take the pawn, right? Is this a tactic? I don't feel tactical right now. I feel distinctly not tactical, in fact. Tactless, even. Maybe rook g7. Alright, at least I got one move here. Well, that was a... I don't have nice words for what that was. Very interesting. It says this does not achieve anything. Well, that's not even what I was considering. I was considering f6, so maybe we could analyze this one. I don't know why they even included that variation. Like, who would think to play bishop d4 if they didn't already know the solution? This is winning for white. I could just play like rook g5 or bishop g5, right? Yeah, this should be winning. Like, they have so many weaknesses. Rook g5. If they take, then I can save f6. If they take f6, I can take their rook. So they have to... So actually it's a failure to play rook d5. Like, so why are they even doing it? Maybe they should try this. But this is just like in the other variation. We're just making it clean. Well, this is another solution, and I don't see why they chose this one. There was this funny thing, I think it was when Carlson was looking at 100 endgames you must know with whatever his name is. I can't remember, the guy who... I don't know why I can't remember his name. The guy who runs this website. Bartholomew. Yeah, so they were doing a video together where they were looking at 100 endgames you must know, and Magnus was finding like positions where they play like 10 moves to do something you can do in one move. And I feel like sometimes that happens here too. Like, probably any book that's written by a world champion these days is a ghostwriter. So probably it's like Magnus informed their decisions about like what to put in the book and gave a couple comments, but it's mostly the work of an understudy. So I would expect the quality to be a little bit variable. Here, king g4 is like the first move that comes to my mind. The easiest way for white to hold balance the pawn down. Yeah, just don't let them make any moves. So if I play king g4 and they play king g7, oh wait, what if I play like rook c4 or rook f8? That might be better, actually. Stay flexible. Rook f8, king f5, rook f7, king e5 is a draw. I will play probably like any move to get a drawn Philidor. I'm sorry, a drawn Ventura position. The reason I'm not even thinking about king e4 or king f4 is that there's rook h4 check, and then king f5 or rook h5 or like whatever, it depends. Black is just better after that. So king g4 has the idea of stopping rook h4. The caveat, I think, is that after like rook h1, I'm not well positioned to protect my e-pawn. And in fact, I'm kind of wondering about rook f8 in the same light. Like, let's say I play rook h1. I play, I don't know, king e4. It still seems good, because they could play like rook f1 check, I play king e4, or I'm sorry, I play king e4, rook e1 check, and even if I play like king d4, if they play king f5, I play rook takes f7 check, and that's a draw. Could even win if they like play badly enough. So the critical test then would be like rook h1, king e4, and then king g7. But then they're not making any move to actually take this pawn. I can just play like rook a8. If they go back to g6, I'll go back to f8. And if they try to guard the f-pawn with their rook and then improve the king, they won't be able to keep my king off of e4, stopping king f5. So rook f8 looks pretty good. And it's an alternative, of course. It's always an alternative. Maybe rook c7. Rook c7 I kind of didn't like, because if they play like rook h7, I can't play king e4 because of the f5 check. So I just have to be careful with like king f4. But, you know, maybe this is what they want me to do. Okay, looks like it is. So this is a book that it looks like I've gone through several times, at least a couple positions. I think what I did was I didn't review the entire book, and I didn't review it on the schedule like what the website recommends. I just reviewed positions that I thought I got wrong like too many times until I like really got them. I think the pro move on Chessable is not to review just ad nauseum. I saw a funny blog post. You know, since now we have blogs on My Chess. It was like how I went from 2000 to 2000 in only 3 years as an adult. And one of the things that they put in the fake article, or the parody article, was like they would just like repeat things like crazy on Chessable to like feel that sense that they actually did something when they didn't. So I think it's important to avoid that if you're training. Alright, so now we're in black is winning territory, apparently. I think the winning technique is to play rook f1 and rook f5, and then you can improve your king. So I feel like I'm just going to play that move. That's just what I feel. Alright, makes sense. Alright, so Gashimov needs to find a good defense. Well, Gashimov seems to be struggling. It'd be cool if you could play like... Oh, I remember this one somehow being like frustrating and annoying and not clear to me. But that might mean that I'm just bad at chess. It might not mean it's a bad position. I think first of all, like, we're swindling. So we should just try to do something swindly like h5. Just create some chances. Bon chance. Now do I play f5? Do I dare to eat a peach? What is this? What do I play? Can they take it if I play f5? Or what if I just play h4? Maybe it's knight e6. No, that runs into bishop d5. That's the problem. So if I play f5 first, and they take, I still can't play knight e6, because they're taking it. Can I claim stalemate if all my moves are bad? Maybe that's what I should do. Like stalemate, I can't move my knight because you'll take it. Or you'll checkmate. Wait, knight e6, bishop d5, rook d3. That's a sequence. King e4, rook d4. That's funny, the knight's helping. And the bishop. So maybe I can just go ahead and do that. Now knight g5 immediately comes to my mind. So king f4 is happening. And then maybe knight h3. And my only quarrel with this is that they can play king f5. So maybe it's f5. But that forces bishop d5. No, still rook d3. Maybe f5, bishop f5. Knight g5, king f4, knight h3, bishop takes h3, oh, I don't know. I don't think it's working. Maybe it's knight d4. Like knight d4, king f4, and then something happens. Like maybe knight e2, king f5, knight takes g3, and if they play king takes f6, there's knight takes e4, and as they say, I'm saved, I think. Knight takes check, and if they move their king away from controlling g7, there's no mate threat on d8. So that seems very promising. I think it's knight d4. I don't really see knight g5 working out. Okay, I think my calculation is just better now, because these moves all made sense to me now. h5 is just like a swindly move. Like I just need to stop them from playing g4 and try to play g5 and h4 to create chances. And like corral their king a little bit. Like I want to do just attack their king. That's the only thing that's maybe going for me. That they have bad piece coordination. Chop, 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 chop. So apparently this is what happened in the game. Well, that was cool. I'm glad I actually got that. Alright, what's the best way to play in the Rook Endgame? Great question. Somehow g4 comes to my mind immediately. But they can take en passant. Maybe that's good for them, because it's helping them to create a pass pawn. Pass pawns should be pushed is another thing, right? Like the c3 pawn's hanging again. Seems like Charlie's always in danger. D5, D6, D7, D8. That's what I want to do. So maybe I'll play D5, they take, I play... Well, they can't play Rook E3, so I play D6. If they play Rook C8, I play D7, Rook D8, Rook B7, that's winning. Easy. I'll just push this... I was going to say push the C-pawn, but it's dead, so I'll bring my king over and take the rook. So D5, Rook C3, D6. Is there some counterplay here? Rook E3. Well, D5, Rook C3, D6, Rook E3, King D5. That should be fine. Alright, but is it King D5? Is it King F5? Is it King D4? I do have options, so I should be careful. I feel like it's King D5. So that if they play some nonsense, I don't know, let's say they play G4, right? I'm going to play one of these three moves, they play G4, they're trying to play F3. I play D7. If they give me a check, I want to play King E7 or King C7. King C7 or King E7. I could play King E7 from F5. King D5 has a problem that when they play Rook D3 check, if I've already promoted, they can take it. So that has some small problems. Maybe it's this. But maybe I should be more... Oh, what did I do? Alright. Maybe I should be more concerned about Rook E8. No, it's just winning. I don't care. Okay, dude. Trying to play that same trick. This isn't my first rodeo. Jeez. Maybe King D5 now. Because if I go back to D3, they'll go back to E1. I go back to D2, they go to G1. And if I play D7, they play Rook G2. Check. King D3, Rook E, and then F3. No, not F3. Let's see, King D3. And then Rook G1. King D2, Rook G2. I'd have to go to D4. That's such a pain. I feel like black is holding if I play King D3. So I'm going to go back to D5. D5, Rook G2, D7, F3. No, wait. This also looks like counterplay. Rook D3, Rook G2. No. Yeah, King D3, Rook G2 is fine. Because if I play D7, there's Rook G1, and I still can't. Another idea here is to play D7 and Rook D6. But that only works if their only way of stopping the pawn is to play Rook D somewhere. If they can play, like, if they can get the Rook onto D8, it's just passive to have the Rook on D6 in this situation. At least I think so. If I play King C3, they'll play Rook E8. And then I'm probably winning by fiat. Just take on B7. It's hard to choose. I think King D5 is the most economical. Rook B3. Well, that's simple. Yeah, I should have thought of this. Because I was thinking of playing rook d6. It's like the same idea. You play rook b3 and rook d3, and then there's nothing happening. Well, that was a major faux pas. I think forever and then missed this obvious thing. It's okay, I guess. Okay. I'll just deal with that and try to remember to do that in the future. Basic stuff. It says that we want to promote. You can't just push the d-pawn. I guess the reason you can't just push the d-pawn is that they'll play bishop f6. Yeah. With a blockade. So I'm tempted not only to play c6, but to play bishop a6. And I think bishop a6 is the stronger version. Because if you play c6, they take. The idea is to play b7, so that if they take, you play d7 and you're about to promote. But they'll play bishop f6 and desperado the bishop. But if you play bishop a6, they take, you play c6. They can't take on b6 because of c7. If they play rook c6 at that point, you play d7. If they take on c7, you play d8 queen. And if they play bishop f6 to stop d8 queen, you play c8 because you have the pawn on d7 supporting. So I think it's bishop a6. And bishop f6, yeah, they kind of have to try that. Now I'm wondering, should I sacrifice and play c6 to get that position by force, like giving them a tempo? Takes rook b7, c6, rook b6, c7, excuse me, rook c6. Yeah, the extra tempo helps them a lot. So probably c6, pawn c6, d7, rook b6. We can go up a piece, but they'll have a lot of pawns, so I don't think that's good. Maybe just, well, if I play d7, they'll play bishop d8. It's not happening. Rook c1 also kind of stands out as a move that might be useful at some point. Because in these lines, their counterplay is with rook c6. So it might be like bishop takes b7, rook takes b7, c6, rook b6, rook c1. And they can't play bishop b2 because we'll play d7. And if we play if they play rook takes b2 or something like that, we're playing c7 anyway. I think this is it. And then rook c1. Yeah, and they can't play bishop b2 because of d7. I'm just checking because there is a back rank idea. Like they take rook b1, but like that's not it. I don't think that's it. Yeah, rook c1 does have to be winning, you're right. I just saw your message now. Probably you got it earlier. Do I want to play c7 though, just to like stick it to the man? No, I want to play d7 so I win the rook. I feel like that's important. And if I play d7 and they play a defending move like rook b8 or bishop f6, I'm playing c7 too, and I just get everything. So I think this is precise. Alright, so that was it. I think that was all pretty clear. Tactics. So Eater Master is giving a lot of good answers in the chat. I'm curious about what Eater Master is up to with the chess studying. Do you want to share with us? Playing any major events? I know COVID has made things kind of weird, but you know, tournaments are starting again. They were gone for basically a whole year in the US, except at the top level. I didn't mean to make a move. I don't know why I did that. I zoned out for a second, sorry. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Because black wants to play g5, so we don't let them. I even remember this position. I don't know why I'm like doing that. Anyway, precise moves only. Probably g3. Like, they can't play any moves. Like, if they rook d6, we play rook b8. If they play bishop anywhere, well, bishop g2 in particular, there's knight g6, king e8, and rook e7, or king g8, rook g7, so that's mate. But they can play h4 as a waiting move. That's why I think it's important not to just try to tempt them with the g-pawn. I just want to force them to do something. But if they play c3, that's another interesting move. So g3, c3, rook f7 check, king g8, because if they play king e8, rook e7 leads to a checkmate. So, wait, knight g6, they can just take it. Sorry, I'm tripping again. Struggling a little bit. So you're focusing on defenses against d4 right now? That's nice. I don't know how I feel about Queen's Indian defense right now, but it's good that you're trying out a lot of different things. Eater Master. Wait, they're in total Zugzwang, right? So if I play g3, c3, rook c7, they like don't have a move, right? They can play c2, but they can't go further. We could play knight f7, knight takes h6. That might be interesting. With the idea to play rook g7 and rook g8. Checkmate. What if I play g3 and they play rook c8 though? Maybe it's good to just play rook c7 first, because they can't play bishop g2. So maybe it would be like rook c7, h4. I don't know. So Eater Master, it sounds like you're looking at a lot of different defenses against d4. Are any of them standing out as like best for you, or what? What are you thinking about it? Do you want to just like rotate amongst all of them, or are you trying to find like a new main weapon against d4? Oof, it was not rook c7, it was rook f7 first, which is what I said, wasn't it? Jeez. We have to come back and do it. Oh, I think I missed all these like accurate checks. Hold on, isn't this like the same position if I play rook c7? Oh yeah, you can't go back moves. Whoops. not sure what you're responding yeah to. If you could be a little more specific. Like, yeah, you're looking for a main weapon, or yeah, you just want to rotate. Okay, so G3 is good because it stops any bishop G2 stuff, and it stops H4. That's not what they mentioned in the notes, but I just don't want to let them play H4. C3's like forced. Yeah, we talked about that. So I guess Rook C7 is not Zugzwang enough. I feel like this is a winning move, though. Let me check. It says only Rook F7 is winning, huh? Interesting. So after Rook C7, the problem is C2. And now if I try this, they promote to a queen. Okay, so it's actually like we're in a hurry. Okay. So it's a tactical thing that I missed. Like, we can only hold the draw if they get their pawn on C2. I thought it would be Zugzwang if they get their pawn on C2. So the tactical idea is to play F7 and then promote with check. Because here, after King E8, F7 check, King D7, F8 is discovered check. And their pawn's still not close to Queen 8. So, yeah, this is a tactic. I messed it up. Master, what's your over-the-board rating these days? Are you playing over-the-board tournaments still? Okay. This is a continuation from the same game, I guess. And Magnus keeps putting pressure somehow. I guess if I take on b6, bishop takes, rook takes, they'll play rook c3 check, and that's not good. But if I play c4, then the bishop on d4 is not supported, so it's kind of loose. I could allow bishop b6 and bishop b4 or something like that. Queen's Gambit decline for black has the reputation of being like slightly better for white for the whole game. It's not, I don't know. I think a lot of top players still play Queen's Gambit decline though. So maybe I just need to know the theory better, but you know, that's the word on the street, right? That like Queen's Gambit declined is a little bit like you're just defending forever. Trying to cruise for an endgame. Yeah, that you might survive, not necessarily even win. So here, I actually like it if they take on e4. Like, rook e4, king e4, rook e8, king d5 looks pretty good. And this bishop's holding down all the weaknesses, so maybe it's just rook b5 with the idea of, like, just keeping an eye on all these important squares. Like, maybe I can double on the e file at some point. Or maybe I could play rook e2 and rook b2. I don't know. I kind of like rook b5 though. It's an alternative. Aren't they always? Maybe it's takes on e8 and then rook b5. Or maybe it's takes, and bishop b6. Oh yeah, it's rook b5 with the idea of bishop b6, because if I play bishop b6 immediately, they'll play rook b8, and my rook is stuck in the pin. So I'll take first. Chop. Oh, come on. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. This is the kind of thing that I forget a lot because it's a relatively like recent development in my chess. That when people have a weakness like this pawn at e6, it's good to fix it. Like if you let them play h5, it's not weak anymore. So we should play g4 first. It's a good move. There are a lot of examples from Yusuplov's games where he does things like this. If you don't like Queen's Gambit decline, but you're looking for something solid, you might want to focus more on the Slav. If you want something with dynamic counterplay, you should try the Grimfeld. But Grimfeld has a lot of theory too. I don't think it's as hard to learn the Grimfeld as people make it out to be, because most people are not playing the critical lines anyway. So it's a little bit exploitative at a lower level where people aren't that well prepared. If you put more prep in, you get more rewards easily against them. But once you're a little bit higher rated, people are better prepared, so you'll have to actually like know all your lines. Can white just push the b pawn? The answer is no. They'll play rook f2. So we should probably play rook c2 and then push it. Oh man, this makes more sense. Didn't mean to be all Speedy Gonzalez about it, but yeah, that's what I just did. So do I push it now? Oh. What were they up to this time? Excuse me. Oh, this is a little bit much for me. Basically, they want their bishop on d4, but the knight also wants to be on d4, so we're just interfering before we go ahead and push this. Oh wait, king e4. Double attack. Yeah, I'm feeling tired. I think that's why I'm making all these silly moves now. Yeah, I think it's good to have at least two main openings that you can switch between depending on your purpose. So Nimzo is another good option if people are playing knight c3 in the queen's gambit instead of knight f3. So you might want to consider that. It's just, sometimes it's very easy to play, where you just like give them doubled pawns on the c file and enjoy. But it's important not to play d5 too quickly with Nimzo. This is a tactic. e4, pawn takes, knight c4, knight takes, pawn takes. Pawn takes f3, c5. e5 is forced. c6, e6, c7, e7. Also after c5, they should probably play b takes, b takes. But if I play c5 and I have to play e5, at that point I can take on e4. That should be good. Okay, so I should play this waiting move, and then probably e4. Dang it. I'm playing really sloppy. I think it's I'm gonna blame it on what I ate for breakfast, honestly. I think that having something with a lot of sugar early in the morning is probably not good for your attention span. I'm kind of suffering from that right now. Even if it is fruit sugar. So I should keep that in mind for if I ever start playing tournaments again. Should probably avoid any light fruit in the morning. Some people swear by that, though. I think it's different for everyone. Alright, so what if I just play bishop b5, right? I don't see what's wrong with just playing bishop b5. I want to take, play king b7, king d8, king c6, and that's winning. Bishop b5, knight b8 check, maybe. King b7. I don't know, this doesn't look impressive. Knight d7, bishop takes, king takes. Oh, that might be a draw. So I should give them a move. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Alright, so it says this fails to c4. Yeah, that makes sense. But I thought the critical line was something way different. So let's actually take a look at this. Hold on. How do I go back? One move. Okay, cool. Oh, hey Vedant, you didn't know I was streaming? Come on. You know I like almost always stream at this time. And I did mention it in the Discord. So, thanks for coming. It says this is a draw on all lines. What? So, it's like you better look out for counterplay, and then like, it's all zeros. What is the deal with this? So, I thought this was the main line. With the idea of taking on d7 and playing king b7 for a win. So it's fun. But it looks like this is even losing. So the variation I calculated was knight b8, king b7, knight d7, and this is a repetition of moves, because if I take, it's not winning. Like, I don't have a way to get in. I have to go back to a6, and we can shake hands for a draw. So, at least my calculation was accurate, but here it says that I'm losing after c4, which is interesting. I would probably try to keep my chances alive somehow. Let's see, can I take, go back, d7? My first thought is that I can take on d7, because they can play c3, that's different. I thought they might take on b3. If they play c3, I lose. So I have to take this. This is check. And they take on e4. Okay, so this is the problem. I saw the draw before I saw the win for black. I think for good calculation, it's not necessary to see both of those things, because my goal was to like try to keep some kind of advantage alive, and I avoided losing. So probably that's fine that I didn't see their win. Yeah, bishop c4, but bishop c4 is not a winning move either, so it's odd that they gave this a bishop, like a winning. They said bishop c4 exclamation point 1-0, but Engine says this is a draw. Let's actually look at this again. Like, how's it a draw? Sometimes the next puzzle is exactly about that, so I try not to, but I don't want to risk losing this position. Okay, now king d7. Takes. Wait, this is the same endgame I just saw, pretty much. So here I would play bishop b5. So the knight's well placed on b6, but I have to meet king b7 with some kind of defending move. Maybe this is a fortress, like king e7, king d7, king d8. How about this tactic? it's king back to d6, so there's no pawn d6. So we could use a triangulation, because here they can only play these two moves, right? So we could play like bishop here, knight here, bishop here, knight here, and then now they can't play knight d7 because they go here, take, and I don't know, I feel like we've already looked at this and it looks like a draw. Yeah, I think probably it's a fortress draw, which is interesting. Maybe I should set this position aside for future analysis. Hold on, let me do that real quick. We could talk about this another time. That's the fortress puzzle. How do I copy the PGN? Oh, the FEN's in the URL. That's convenient. Oh, it's down here. That's true. Okay. 1 second, guys. I just want to save this in my study that I'm preparing. Fortresses. We have some extra stuff to talk about. I have a lot of ideas coming up. I feel like after a break from chess in general, I have a lot of great ideas. So I'm trying to prepare for that future day when we actually look at my ideas. Okay. So here it's saying best defense for black. Should you take the bishop? Yes, because we just talked about this. Alright, so we take and play this. This is our defending technique. Do I take with the king or the pawn, right? So if I take with the pawn, they play king b6, and I'm not happy, right? No, king d8. No, they play king c6 and king e7, and I lose after king c7, so I should take with the king. Wait, aren't these both drawing? These are actually both a draw, right? It's d5. Okay, so this is better. I think they're both draws, but d5 is a nice move, so I should definitely see it. Alright, just moving on so we can see some more positions. Alright, so Magnus's active pieces. Black cannot easily attack the white pawns because they're far away, etc. Only one move gives white real winning chances. If it's going into a knight endgame, that would be a big plot twist, because knight endgames are probably the most drawish in all of chess, except for opposite color bishop endgames. I think the ranking is like opposite color bishop's most drawish, second most drawish is like knight and pawn endgames, and the third is queen endgames. Maybe the last two are switched. Anyway, that's just statistics. Kind of just interesting to know, not very useful. So I think it's bishop c5. Take, they take on d5, I take on a6, they take on e4, I play knight c7. I think that's good, like they're just full of weakness. So I'm going to try it. I'm trying to go a little bit fast here. So I might make some mistakes, but that's okay. It'll show what I don't know cold. So it's actually what's the cleanest winning sequence. So this is definitely going to be one of those puzzles where they tell me everything's an alternative move, so that would be annoying. I hate the alternative moves. It's different. Alternate. Rook d8 comes to mind. I'm sorry, Rook e8 comes to my mind right away. If they take, I make a queen. If they take on c7, I can play Rook e3. With the idea of playing Rook g3 and then King g4 or King g5. I guess it depends. And it prevents the king from coming back to the pawn. I don't want to block my pawn. I don't want to be too far away. I think this is the best place for the rook. Dang it. Do I need a 2-file cutoff? Is that why? Alternative curses. Maybe rook d2. I don't like this one. Everything's winning. So let's skip that. Says that there's a tactic here for black to prevent white's rook from going on a rampage or something. Knight d7 is the first thing that comes to my mind. I guess the rampage that they're thinking of is rook a5. Maybe knight d7, rook a5, c5, rook a7, c4. And they can't take on c4 or on d7. Because, like, let's say they play rook d7. It'd be pawn takes b3. They have to take back, otherwise... Maybe they don't have to take back, but it seems important not to let me play pawn takes a2. And if they do take back, we'll play rook c1. But actually there's a knight, there's a rook on d7, so maybe that doesn't make sense. Definitely feeling kind of rusty here. Like 2 years after reading this book. Still, knight d7 seems promising. But like, what's next? Or maybe bishop e7 instead. Bishop e7, and then they have rook a5 and rook e5. But if they play rook e5, isn't the rook trapped? Because after bishop d6, rook a5, bishop b4, rook a7. I don't know, I'm starting to feel like there should be a rook trap here somewhere if they like take any of my pawns. They should probably start with bishop e7. Bishop e7, rook e5, bishop d6, rook a5, bishop to b4, rook a7, Well, could I play bishop e7 without seeing everything to the end? Possibly. I just need to get my pieces active. If I do nothing, they'll play knight e3 and knight d5. And that's a problem. So I think I need to just do bishop e7. Like just get it going. Wait. Maybe here I can play bishop b4, because if they play a3, I play f6. No, f6 is illegal, what am I saying? Maybe bishop b4, a3, knight d7. That seems promising. Yes. Alright, so my intuition was correct. That was good. Moving on. Cool. White took e5, and now black wants b2. back in just 1 second. And we're back. Sorry for the intermission. Okay, so our goal here is to deal with the threat on b2. I don't think there's any way to reasonably defend b2, nor do I even really care to. I feel like we have other advantages in the position. But that's just my first impression. Like maybe it's worth considering like knight b4 to try to get in knight d3 and protect it or something, if it really costs nothing. Endgames are boring? Not necessarily. I like them. There's a lot of tactical moments. Like, so far we've had several, like, cool tactics happening, I think. I feel like this one's simple, but I don't know the answer right now. Maybe it's like knight b4, bishop b2, knight d3, bishop, I don't know, g7, and then knight c5. Or maybe we can play bishop d4 to stop knight c5. Then I could play e5 check. So that might be useful. Or maybe I could just play f4. Say, like, I don't care about b2. f4, bishop takes b2, e5, the bishop's not coming back. They play king c7, and I play rook takes a7. So maybe f4, bishop b2, e5, they have to play king e7. But then I can play knight to b4, with the idea to take on c6 mostly. I'm willing to give this a stab. Yeah, let's go. Knight b4. Feels right. If they play bishop c3, I'd have knight c6. Check. And then rook a7. Here, don't I have rook takes a7, rook takes a7, knight c6? Is that not winning? I'm coming out on b5. Yeah, I don't see why not. Alright. Finally. Got it right. See, endgames, I think they're just like openings. Which sounds like it couldn't possibly be more contrarian, but it makes sense because so I made a video about like what is an endgame. It's a long video because I go through all the like maybe misconceptions or different conceptions about what an endgame is, and I explain why I agree or disagree, like what the good and bad parts are of these different ideas of the endgame. But I think probably the most useful definition, not necessarily the most accurate, but the most useful that helps you to improve your results in a game, is to think of an endgame as a position with reduced material that you can prepare the same way as an opening. So these endgames are actually like much more high level. That's why this book is ranked as like an intermediate to expert level book, I guess. The methods that we're looking at are not methods that appear in typical situations. You're never going to have this same exact position, Carlson versus Karyakin, on the board in your own tournament game. It's too intricate. But the way of thinking is what we're preparing here. So that's another story. I think if you're studying the endgames in general, not just in this kind of like meta way, where it assumes some endgame knowledge already, you can set up a position that has like 2 rooks and a couple of pawns, and then like study it into the ground until you know exactly how to proceed from that position, and do that for a wide variety of endgames that are like that. Same way that you prepare your openings, right? You set up the initial position, which is always the same, and you ask yourself like, well, what happens if they go here? What happens if they go here? And you remember what you want to do, and you analyze it because you can reliably get that starting position, right? We always set the chessboard the same way, except in chess 960. So from a preparation standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to study the endgames, and I don't think they're boring because they have all that same richness that openings have. There's all kinds of things that can happen just in the opening. Just in the endgame. And there are lots of tactical moments, and clearly when you get into this like higher level endgame stuff, like what we're looking at in this book, there are aspects of it that are similar to middle game strategies too. Practical decisions you have to make, things like that. So here the question is like, why not just take this bishop, right? there's knight d8, discover attack on the rook, and after like king e8 or something, rook takes c7. But after king takes d8, the rook's under attack, and it's 2 minor pieces against rook. So they might play, for instance, rook g7, but we can meet that with knight e7. That seems pretty reasonable. This position just might be defensible, because after my idea would be to play knight e7 and king d7, and I don't see an easy way for white to make progress. Rook takes f7 is also interesting. So if you play rook takes f7, and they play knight d8, they're going to play rook takes c8. I don't think you can avoid it. Like, you might play rook d7, they play rook takes c8. And I think you're actually in trouble. Actually, no, rook c... Yeah, they have knight e6 coming up. I feel like that's kind of dangerous. But maybe it's worth considering. Also, rook f7, e6 might be dangerous. And I guess you could always just go back to c7. But if you go back to c7, there's... Anyway, I think king takes is better. Rook takes, you're just losing a pawn. Knight d8, rook d7, rook c8. And this e6 pawn is strong. I feel like white has a winning plan there, so I'm going to try this one. Oh man. It looks like Magnus actually played king takes f7. Okay, so I underestimated f5 here. It looks like this is what the book is saying is good for white. Okay, if I saw that, I would have gone for rook f7. So yeah, I think it's better to play this way then. But the next question is like, how do you answer knight d8? Maybe the answer to this is to actually save your knight. Like, play knight e7. Knight e7, knight takes f7, king takes f7, rook c7. We can't. Oh, we can play a5 and bishop b4. I think I got a worse version of what I wanted. Wait, so if I play knight e7, can I also play rook c7? No, the bishop's guarding it. And also there's rook f4, king f4, knight d5. I think this is best. Am I not just taking this? Come on. They would play king e3. No, still knight d5, right? Am I missing something here? Oh, they play knight e6, so I didn't even look and see what the checks are. That's the old rust. See, I knew a5 was a good move, because that was the first thing that came to my mind, and I tried to get fancy with it. Okay. So I'm still making a lot of mistakes, but it's okay. We're reviewing, so I can get back in form. Now this one looks like f4. Just the first thing that comes to my mind. They can't take en passant. They have to take with the g-pawn. They take queen e3 maybe. Queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and then a4. Or maybe king takes and then a4. No, that's not right. Maybe something stronger than this. I have another idea. What if I just play a4? If they play f4, which is why I thought of f4 to begin with. I don't want them to play f3 and checkmate me. I could play queen a2. They play f3. Or maybe I take and then play queen a2. They play f3, king h3. If they play queen f2, they're actually losing. Queen takes, bishop takes, a5. I'm going to play b6. Actually, no, I'm going to play, maybe not losing, it's a strong word, but I guess some queenside, I'd counterplay. a4, queen takes a4. Is that a problem? No, queen b2. I get counterplay. I think this is good. Wait, hold on. Maybe not queen a2 directly. Not queen b2 directly. Because they can play bishop d4. That's annoying. So maybe f4 takes king f4, queen d2. And if e3, then queen d6. Oh, come on. This is crazy looking move. Maybe f4 now? Said h4. Now queen d2. Okay. This one was a little bit beyond me. And you usually when I get a position like this, I mean not always, like whenever I'm looking at Dvoretzky's books, it's a different story, but sometimes in books that I suspect are not written by an extremely strong coach, they'll immediately write a comment that says the engine shows something or other, and here that's what it says. So I'm not surprised at all to see that this was probably someone's engine analysis. Do I play queen d6? I think I do. For the perpetual. Alright, so a4, I got that. Even though that's already a very hard move. h4, to make queen d2 stronger was like very deep for me. Like, the idea of queen d2 comes to mind, but then since it's only threatening really one thing, I think after bishop d4 or queen d4 even, it's like not working. Like, maybe let's analyze this. They go here, and we could try this if we want to get checkmated. Like, I'm pretty confident that this is bad. Queen f1, king h4 is not me. But it does look pretty scary. Like queen d1 comes with tempo, but I'm not sure queen d1 is actually useful. But it does kind of line up a mate on g4. It's setting up. Oh, queen e7 is happening, so we're not getting bishop d8 in time. So probably we'll use the fact that the queen's guarding f5 to bring our king in. I just want to push this e pawn. Nothing but an E thing. Alright, so we get rid of that. I want to see it again. Get out of my sight, you engine moves. I feel like we just saw this position. Sometimes I wonder how the Chessable chooses to like make you review, like what order they go in, because I thought these were from the same game. Like, I thought that it would go in game order. Alright, so bishop b5 seems good. Because knight d7, I'll just take it. After king b7, it's just knight c4, pawn c4, and king d7 for a drop. But after bishop b5, is c4 a thing? No, because c4 is only a thing when the knight's on d7, because we'll get this check and take the e-pawn, so I'm pretty confident about this move. Now if I play king b7, they'll play knight d7, threatening c4, and I'll have to go back. Back to c4 to prevent pawn c4. I mean, Then they go back to knight b6, so that's wrong. So I imagine I should play king a7, so that if they play knight d7, I can take, they take back, and I play king b7 with Suksvan. Alright, see you in a couple minutes, Eater Master. But also, what if they play king d6? No, I'll play king c8, that's fine. As long as their knight's off the board, I can allow king d6. So if I play king a7, they play king d8, I can play king b8. That should be good. And if they play knight c8, try to get their knight on d6. That could be an issue. So maybe I should actually be stopping knight c8. That seems important. So maybe I should actually play king b7, even though it allows knight d7. Maybe there's another defense I didn't see yet. King b7, knight c8 is illegal, so knight d7. Bishop takes, king takes, it's not good. Wait, maybe it's okay. King b8, then they play king d8. Okay, so that's not working. If I play bishop c6, I think they can play any move they want. So I'm going to try king a7. Oh, come on. So it was king b7. But I don't know why they played king d6. Maybe I'll play king b8 and just see what they do. Alright, so it says knight c8 doesn't work. Wait, hold on. Yeah, knight c8. But they're only analyzing knight c8 after the king's on d6. Right, so let's analyze this. This is a drawn position, so no wonder I'm confused. Yeah, this is a draw, which is frustrating. This book's been out for a while now. Like this, yeah, I think this book's like 2 years old. I feel like they should have improved it by now. But maybe that's like too much of a redaction. It'd be like admitting that your book wasn't good. That's probably why they didn't do it. I mean, it's still a pretty good book. I think that even with all the weirdness, it's worth studying a book like this. If books had to be 100% correct for them to be worth studying, then no one would study the classic books. Like my great predecessors would be like trash. So it's definitely not the case. In fact, finding the errors in books that have either like not very rigorous analysis or no computer analysis at all, like old books, it's a good exercise. I recently went through the book Simple Chess by Steam, and the analysis is not very high quality, but they try to present the material in a very simple way. So they usually have very clear arguments, and it's interesting to try to refute their arguments and find problems with them. Could I copy paste the FEN for the last one maybe, or this one? All right, at the end I'll try to do this. I'll try to copy the FEN. Just remind me in case I'm about to click the next. Yeah, classic books are dated, that's for sure, but I still think that it doesn't matter if their analysis is up to date or not, because chess is like most science type things, built on its history. So whatever people used to do in the past was what was more obvious and straightforward and logical, and people have adapted new ways of doing things only because those old ways don't work. So it's important to understand why people did things the old way, to understand why people do things the new way now. So I still like studying the classic books, because I don't think my understanding of chess is necessarily that great that I don't need it. Also, outdated opening theory is basically like novelty for a low-rated player, because people who are rated lower generally have not studied the classic games. If they have, they've studied only like a subset of them. So when you find an old opening from a book like Zurich 1953 or Fischer's 60 Memorable Games, that's an opportunity to uncork some opening problems for your opponent if you're playing in like a sectional, not against master players. So there's supposed to be a strong plan for white here. A couple things come to mind, but I have to keep in mind that these rooks are going to get traded at some point, like somebody's going to take a rook. I feel like they're going to try to take all the rooks off the board. And there could be issues with white's doubled pawns over here and stuff, but I think it's really hard for black to access its weaknesses. Meanwhile, the pawn on f7 is very weak in the endgame, even if all the rooks are gone, because they don't have a bishop that can guard the light squares. And they can't easily advance it without creating more weaknesses. So I feel like the simple plan is to just play king f1 and king e2, just centralize the king, and start going for these queenside weaknesses immediately. I don't really want to destabilize things by playing a4. But I also feel like putting a knight on c5 might be cool. I don't know, let's just try this one for sake of like time. Okay, so there's some concrete idea involved with trading these rooks, but I don't see what it is. Well, I can play king f1, because if they play rook d2, I can play king e1. So I'll try that. Oh, so there's a better way of getting on c5. I guess I just didn't see how that was much better than bringing the king. Or maybe I'm just being lazy. I think I was just being lazy, because this is a good idea. I wanted to play this, but the knight gets traded for this bad knight, and I wasn't sure it was worth it. Because so I might play knight a4, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, and c5. I think white's still winning there, but I don't know, I wasn't that happy with it. But this is pretty good. And if they play rook d2, just play rook c2, I think. Yeah, after rook d2, like knight d1, rook d2, I think the move was rook c2. Just trade everything. So white needs to improve the position. Rook a5 looks like an improvement. Or maybe knight c2 to b4, and then rook a5. Bishop a4 maybe? Okay, it's a tactic. Rook c2, the d1 knight hangs. That's a good point. I also forgot to paste the FEM. Sorry about that. I don't know how to go back. I don't think you can go back a lesson. Here, let's try this. Let's navigate to it. You can browse. I know this probably looks really ugly on my stream right now, so I'm sorry about that. I don't even know what section of the book I'm in right now. Maybe I'm in active play. Okay, I don't know how to find where we are right now, so I think that's a lost cause. We'll have to come back to it at some point, like in the Discord server. We can go over it at that time, if that's okay with you. I just don't want to fumble around on stream. Okay, so I show 8-6. Oof. I always do that. Should we take the pawn on e5? Good question. Well, that pawn's going to be weak forever, and if I take it, they might play bishop g7 and take on b2. And they want to play rook d2, right? So maybe I should be tactically preventing that. Like rook takes e5 and king f6, and then oh, I don't know. I feel like rook d2 is happening. I wouldn't cry if I lost my knight for this bishop on e6. But that bishop also isn't like the most amazing piece I've ever seen, so maybe I should be more ambitious. But I feel like that's been a problem with my chess recently, where I just I don't have lofty aspirations in the opening or anything. I guess that makes sense because I feel bad when I lose and feel nothing when I win, so why would I be super ambitious? I wonder if rook d2 is even that serious of a threat. Like, what if I play knight b4? I say I don't care. They play rook d2, I play king e1. If they play rook takes b2, I can just play rook e5. King f6. But my knight is hanging, bishop d2. So maybe not. What if I play f4? No, let's play bishop takes f4. I was thinking f4, pawn takes, and e5, but that's not happening. Bishop takes f4. I'm just wondering if there's some kind of tactic that I'm missing here. Rook takes e5, king f6, and maybe just rook a5. Yeah, actually, I just get two pawns. Like, I don't care. Oh man. Okay, so it looks like the key factor that I missed is that if I take on e5 without forcing them to play rook d7, they can play knight d7 and bring it on e5. But that's so subtle. Like, I didn't notice. I think rook c5 here. Okay, that makes sense. Alright, so black's winning here. And that makes a lot of sense. f2, king takes f2, king takes h2, g4 check is a problem, so we should probably play h4. Oh man, I forgot to fix the weaknesses. That's super annoying. Or maybe, yeah. better. Fix the weaknesses some more, question mark. I could also like bring my bishop to e2, like why not? If I play bishop c2, king e3, bishop d1, they can't take on d3 because of f2. Maybe I could also play bishop a2, bishop d5, and bishop e4. And then they can't take either of them because I'll just push one pawn. Or I'll play king f5. Yeah, I kind of like this one more. But should I fix the weaknesses first? If they play a4, I can play bishop c2 and take it. If they play b4, the pawns are on the right color. So maybe I should play a5, but then they play bishop c7. But then I can play d2. So I'm wondering if I even need to fix these weaknesses. I could play a5, a4. That'd be good. You know what? I want to play a5, a4 while I can. Was this urgent or something? Like, I don't feel like it's urgent to get over here. If I play a5, king e3, is that even a problem? Like, for real? Okay, I can see how that would be inconvenient. So this is kind of urgent. I like don't care about that. So maybe I'll play king h3 and king g2. Okay, so I'm taking the queenside pawns. I was trying to push through and with king g2 and f2. Let's analyze this a bit. Okay, first of all, every move's winning. It says b5 is winning. It says a5 is winning. They're all the same score. So I don't feel that bad about my decision trying to play a5 after the last one where they made a big deal about fixing the weaknesses. So anyway, if I play a5 and they play king e3, what does it say is going to happen? Not shockingly, a Zugzwang. Like it says a4's top move. Not shocking whatsoever. They can't take anything. So here, I think they would try to wait with the bishop, so maybe they go here. But they can't leave the g-pawn behind, so they're very limited in that way. So I could bring my king now with king f5, probably. No, they'll go back to f4. So I should play another Zugzwang. I go here. They should go like here. I go here. They go back to d6 maybe. Wait, hold on. Did I have a tactic this whole time? No, because I need them to not be looking at d2. Right. So I picked f4 just by coincidence, but bishop f4 is an accurate move because if you play like bishop d6, then f2 wins. They take and we play d2, and there's no way to stop the promotion. But if the bishop's on f4, they would have a discovered protection on d2. So that's why f6 is a Zugzwang move. They move the bishop because if they move the king, I promote. But I'm promoting anyway, the same way I just showed you. So, yeah, I really don't feel bad about playing a5 in this position. I think it's fine. Just another way to win that they don't like for some reason. How should black win is the question. I feel like I'm just going to play queen c1 at the end of the line or something. Like I go here, they go there, I go here, they go there, I go here, they go there, I go here, they say oops. because wherever they move, right, I think I can play queen f4 and get the queens off the board. And then I'm still winning because I have the d-pawn. But maybe that's not ambitious enough. So after queen c1 check, right, if they go here, I could play d2. And I could just block checks with the queen. And if they go here, it's the same. I'll play d2. Or maybe I'll play... Yeah, I feel good about this. Oh, I should have looked for other ideas. Other moves are not winning, apparently. Okay. What the heck? Okay. That makes sense. I'm rushing. I need to slow down. So if I play h2, and they play f7, and I get a queen. Maybe this is not winning. Maybe that's the problem. Like, I should just stop them. Check. All right, let's analyze this with a computer. It says this is not winning. I am surprised though that this is not winning. Queen c1 seems good. Like, wherever they go, I don't care. I should probably improve my queen's position first. So how about this? If they try to go here, alright, maybe I shouldn't check them closer to the pawn. What if I just go here? Oh, I missed a mate in one. That's me. Okay, so I actually can't do what I wanted to do because of a mate threat. It's annoying. So that was the one check. Okay, that makes sense, and then we have to play d2. But probably, even if I am missing this checkmate at the end of the line, I should be more ambitious in the sense that I want to have a queen against no queen, right? So d2 is a candidate move that should definitely occur to me if I'm just going to play good chess. Okay, so white resigned in one move here. Probably it's to bring the bishop to g4 and bring the king to the queen side. We already saw that idea, so I'm going to go here. Just for Soup's Fong's sake, yeah. Alright, take care, Uter Master. I'm probably going to wrap up for now. I don't know how much I actually did. It says I reviewed 124 moves and 40 variations with 72% accuracy, which is like just okay. I think I started out better and I started petering out over time. And I have 327 moves to go. But anyway, I'm not sure I will actually finish reviewing the book because I just remembered all the qualms that I had with their like alternate solutions and stuff. And I feel like I have a pretty good handle on the material. I should be working on other things right now. So this was good. If you guys like what you see here, you can go on Chessable and get this book. It's probably like $30 or something. I don't know though, because they change their prices sometimes. Always get books on sale. So anyway, I think this is a good spot to wrap up. So thanks everyone for coming, and I'll see you next time. Take care.